Welcome back once again to the Imaginary Gallery, the Narcissist Bag of Tricks. Tonight's topic will be a mixture of a few things and how they interrelate together, which would include narcissistic injury, narcissistic rage, and conflict resolution with the covert narcissist. In fact, the main focus here will be the covert narcissist, but it'll flip back and forth a little. So, to begin, what is narcissist injury? Well, first of all, you have to understand what the narcissist is, which normally is a fake persona, a person who is pretending to be something that usually is nothing like what they truly are, and they wear that mask and they maintain it from day to day with interactions with you. Well, narcissistic injury can occur, for example, if you got a friend who tells you every day how he or she is a certain type of person, and yet during your interactions with this person you notice behaviors that don't fit the classification that they've given themselves. Well, when you confront such things, inconsistencies, such as contradictions, you are possibly creating a narcissistic injury to this cluster bead monster. Because remember, all they have going for them is this mask that they're telling you is real. And if you come to them point blank and say, you know what, I don't think you really are like you say you are, well, that is liable to create a narcissistic injury, because the truth is they're not like they say they are, and they know this on a certain level. So when you step forward and push that button right in to say, you know what, I think there's something fishy about you, they will many times suffer the injury, and then that leads to the narcissistic rage. So for the first part of this, I will just be focusing on the covert. These people are skilled actors. So, for example, if you're with such a person, you have first-hand exposure and knowledge that they're not really like they say they are. Well, if you are, let's say, in public with this cluster B narcissistic covert monster, and something comes up in his or her mouth about how great she or he is, or whatever the case is, if you were to say, wait a second, you're always saying that you are this, but I can't help but notice that, well, with the covert, they will not show any kind of even pretty much recognition of what you've said. In their twisted mind, they are this person who is this mask, and that's who they are. So if you step forward and say, you're not who that mask is, you're different, they may show the rage, but that'll be saved for later. The covert many times will not react at all, even if you are pointing out, like in your mind, a major contradiction. Like, let's say Hillary Clinton is coming to your high school to tell you how great she would be as a model of integrity for your country, and she is the best candidate out there, and she believes in these wonderful values of honesty, integrity, and so on. Well, that sounds good and well, but imagine if one of the students raises their hand and says, "Wait a second, didn't you organize the killing of one of the Kennedys? Didn't you ship arms illegally to other countries? Didn't?" And if they start like listing these things, if you're Hillary Clinton, chances are you'll suffer a narcissistic injury because you're up there presenting this perfect face, and then someone else is like pointing out flaws in this image you're trying to present. Well, again, we're dealing with covert. So, what will normally happen, because these people are somewhat of skilled actors, they will probably not really show a response or not really act in any way that indicates they've been caught or found out, which is one of their talents. Where here you are thinking, yeah, lady, nice job trying to pass that crap off on us. What about A, B, C, D, E? Well, they'll still be like, I don't know what you're talking about. Please remove that person. That person's an extremist. Please arrest them under the Patriot Act. It's a terrorist, whatever they do. But that's very parallel to the narcissistic world politics. But anyway, what I've noticed with the covert is you may have called them out on whatever you call them out on, but in your face they're going to be like acting like, oh, whatever you say, and they won't show any type of expected reaction to someone who's just been basically exposed as a fraud. Well, that's part of their nature. However, what happens is you are going to pay for this, but not right now. So you may even think, wow, that comment was pretty strong and didn't even seem to bother her, but, oh, okay. Well, then we move into conflict resolution, which is something the covert narcissist is no good at, which I happen to believe it might be possibly related to the fact that what you may see as a conflict may not necessarily really be a conflict to the narcissistic personality person. Because remember, they're wearing their mask for you, so they may come to you as your spouse saying, it's very important to me that my husband or wife is faithful to me every day of the year. And you're hearing that, so you're thinking, oh, well, that person likes fidelity. But then when down the road you find out that this same person has snuck off with one of its students to make love in the back room, and then you're like, ooh, wait a second. And then you're in cognitive dissonance of thinking, wait, you've made it clear that you don't believe in that, but you did that? And that's a different subject. And if you find yourself in this situation, it's very difficult because you think that you're on the same page with this narcissistic person as far as your views on fidelity, for example, and yet here your narcissist has actually broken that specific rule and you've found out somehow. So naturally you're looking for the dialogue that comes along with this, the thought process that goes along with how someone with those strong beliefs against such a thing could find themselves engaging in this kind of thing. And this is where we discuss the conflict resolution, because clearly from what you've heard from the mask, infidelity is a big problem. Yet here this person has actually committed it. So you, being the regular person that's in reality, thinking that I thought we discussed this and agreed, you're like looking for a reaction of perhaps a red face, a doubling over in tears, a demand begging for forgiveness or something. But guess what? With the covert narcissist, it doesn't happen. It's as if the fact that you're pointing out a subject from a discussion you've had previously that you both agreed upon as bad, and yet you're saying, I can't believe you did this, and all they do is take it as a threat to their entire being. It creates a narcissistic injury to them because you are basically pointing out that the image they're giving you isn't working so well because They can't be both types. They can't be the type that really is very strongly against infidelity and the type that ends up naked in the back room with one of their students while they're married to you. So it's like the cognitive dissonance. But what I've learned is that when you're involved with such a person and you say, hey, you, we need to have a talk, which, again, those are words they hate, but you let's have a talk. And you try to like be rational, which I've told you in other videos does not work with this kind of creature, but you don't know this at this point probably, so you're going to try. But what ends up happening is covert narcissists may have issues or problems with things you've done, but they do that normal routine where they act and pretend as if nothing's wrong, and my guess is their mind is saying, he or she'll get hers or his. It's coming. Oh, nothing's wrong. And they'll act all innocent for the moment, but they've got something planned for you. You better believe it. Well, here's where that comes out, which we're discussing narcissistic rage as well, but this is more like the covert version, because what'll happen is you'll do whatever you did that evidently upset your narcissist, but of course you won't hear a thing about it, or you'll hear something very slight about it and it won't seem like a big deal. Well, the moment, like in this case, you uncover the fact your spouse has been messing around with its students in the back room and you start to say, hey, I can't believe this. Well, instead of addressing your concern, and remember, in the love bombing stage, when you had a concern about anything external to the narcissist, they'd be right there to fix it for you. Well, now it's like you're being abandoned because it's a very real subject. It's a very serious thing you've discussed at length, and yet when you attempt, guess what happens? That is when you will hear about something you did that he or she was not happy with. So rather than address your concern of this very real student thing, it's, well, what about the time that you had done blah, blah, blah to me? And of course, my response, which they hate, would be, well, if you have a concern about that, let's put that up on the parking lot and we'll discuss it at a later time when you want to discuss it. But don't use that as a response to my question about this very relevant topic. Now, back on topic. But again, you can try such things, but it's rarely effective because you have to realize you're dealing with a child, a monster that never really emotionally developed, and it doesn't know what else to do. Plus, it cannot self-reflect, whereas I can, and I can like self-reflect and say, well, hey, well, I feel this and feel that, and I can understand how you do, so let's work with this. But they cannot do that. It's like you're trying to speak to them in a different language. So the important lesson I've learned from this type of experience is this is one of the major times where it's pointed out to you in plain sight that your concerns and problems don't matter to the narcissistic person, which is quite a contrast to what you're used to with the love bombing stuff. It's all of a sudden your concerns don't matter. Yet it only seems to be because it's about the behavior of your narcissistic partner. And if you try to stand your ground and say, look, I have a concern about this, then they'll pull in that other story. But what about the time you did this? No one was there for me then. And it's like, that's a different subject. We'll get to that later. But that was my point. It's like, well, if you had a problem with something that went on, why didn't you come to me like I'm coming to you now to say, look, something's off here? And of course, you won't get a valid answer. It's a child. And the sooner you realize that, and the fact you can't force a child to have adult knowledge by just telling them, come on, come on, come on, because it doesn't exist for them. It's just not there. So you may be a fully functional adult who actually went through the stages of growing to outgrow the petty games these people play. You can't snap them into your level because most of their life anyway, if not all, is based on fictitious fantasies, scamming and conning poor innocent people into doing their bidding. And the sooner you realize that and how it's hopeless, the better. Because many of us think, oh, I see what the problem is, let me fix it. Good luck. You won't fix it. Because basically, too, you're dealing with a mask. So you can try to delve into specific things you've seen, but remember, it's a mask. It's not even representative of what's under that mask. It's just designed for you and whatever agenda is planned for you. On the part I mentioned previously about the conflict resolution, how maybe what you consider a conflict may not be considered a conflict to the covert narcissist. Well, that ties in with the mask deal, because remember, which is hard for you to take when all you've seen from day one is this character that you assume to be real just like anybody else. Well, when you think about it this way and realize it was a mask, so it may claim that it loves fidelity, but that's designed as a mechanism to control you, for you to have fidelity with him or her. So clearly, when you see what's being done behind your back, you're like, well, clearly this person doesn't value fidelity. But when you realize it was a mask, it was fake, it was designed to control you and mirror you, so you thought you found someone with like-minded ideas, do these things that totally don't go with the person who used to go on and on about how it's important for you to be faithful, and then this person isn't, and none of that's there. It's like, oh, what happened to that? Well, the conflict here is you're thinking the two of you are involved in a serious thing, and the behavior you've uncovered doesn't indicate that, and you're like confused, thinking, am I missing something? Shouldn't the same mentality behind all the stuff you said before like come out now and be addressed? And it's not, because what I've uncovered as well over the years is these people are playing you. They're preying upon you. They know what really gets to you. So if infidelity is one of your soft spots, well, they're getting off on this interaction. They're getting off on you searching for the right words to try to resolve this in your little head, and they're thinking, deal with it, baby, because they don't really feel the way they've claimed to. But many of us as targets don't want to believe that. We remember the previous words and think, well, I know you know what I'm talking about. You've said the way you felt. Well, guess what, honey? That only applied to you, not to the narcissist. Remember, they have the elevated sense of entitlement, and it's perfectly fine for them to find somebody else behind your back, but you better not dare. And that's another reason why you gotta get out, because with a mind like that, you'll never win, or you'll end up dead. In reference to narcissistic rage, though, with the overt, it's a little different, which, in my experience, I've actually witnessed both techniques from the same person. So, in the beginning part, it's all covert and covered up, and you don't find out that they were mad about something until 6 months later, and then they bring it up when you've brought up something they've done horrifying. Well, the opposite end is the overt narcissistic rage displays. And again, it's the same type of deal, but normally if you're dealing with one of these flip-flop people who goes from covert to overt, it has to do with the urgency of the situation or the circumstances involved. Here's an example of an overt narcissistic rage. You've been dating this person for a while, and you really like something about him or her. It could be physical, it could be other ways, it could be the meals they make for you and the time they spend with you, or any number of things. However, you happen to notice that it's like a player where you often find him or her flirting with, or what appears to be flirting with, other people, which you find to be insulting because you think the two of you have some kind of bond and think there's no way if anyone felt so close to me as I do that they could do what they're doing. So you may reach a point where you realize, you know what, this person's an actor, this person's faking, and it might like reach a point where you accidentally walk in and see him, let's just say, getting real close to one of his cute young employees and like putting his nose right into her ear or something, and you see that and you're like, that is inappropriate. Well, imagine that the two of you are out together and you've been noticing these things and gaslighting yourself a lot, thinking, oh, well, that's just the way this person is. But finally it gets to the point where you realize this person is no good. Well, imagine that the two of you go back to his home, which you've driven to earlier, and you are fed up. You're at the point where you realize this is basically a big old kid in an adult's body. I don't have any place here. Because you notice the same things happening repeatedly, thinking that where could this ever go? Can this get better or is it going to get worse? So you're like, you know what? I'm going to leave. Well, your threatening to leave is a threat to the narcissist's sense of control, and therefore can create a narcissistic injury because you're withdrawing, and you know the narcissistic person has to be in control, so you're not to leave until he tells you to leave. You will not dare on your own decide to leave. Oh, no, no, no. So tactics will then occur. So let's imagine that he knows what he's done, of course, but will be like, oh, please don't leave. Please don't leave. Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, so. And it's fake, of course, because you know he wasn't sorry when he was doing it and continued to. But that's the kind of cards they'll try to play to try to appeal to your humanity and like, oh, please, oh, don't leave. And in this case, this person's roommate's mother happens to live there and says to you, oh, he's drunk, give him a break. And you're like, no, I'm sick of this. So he grabs you, because remember, you are inflicting narcissistic injury, and it's going to escalate into the overt rage. So let's say he drags you into the bathroom and says, please don't leave, please. And you're like, no, I am leaving. And of course, here you are, one-upping this monster because now it seems you're in control of the game. Well, imagine if you then, like, say it over and over and over, I'm leaving, I'm leaving, I'm leaving, and then you take your hand and you go like this. Very light pat on the person's face and say, I'm leaving. Well, then the real rage appears, and all of a sudden, a huge fist is, BAM! Pounded on the side of your head, and it's that sick thing where your ear goes deaf because it's like pounded, and you're like, oh, and of course in my circumstance I would be like, oh, well, I really want to stay now, because I was counter-manipulating before I knew I was counter-manipulating, but I really want to stay now that you did that. Oh, yeah, because, again, you didn't hit them like, bam, you were just like, and then in return, you got the BAM! So, imagine, again, we're mixing back and forth. So, you've had it even worse. I'm thinking, this is worse than I thought. So you start to, like, grab your coat or your keys or whatever, and, oh no, this person's rage is not going to let you get away so easy. So all of a sudden, you're, like, yanked backwards, and you're like shoved on the floor, And you're like, look, I'm leaving. I'm sick of this. This is getting better as it goes. Or I think at that point, though, you may not have the sarcasm, but I didn't. So it's like, and so I'd be like trying to frantically gather my things, and yet this person is like not going to allow it. But oh, I forgot to mention that after the pow, instead of please stay, all of a sudden the dialogue changed to leave! I want you to leave! And it screams, and it's a Tasmanian devil, and you're thinking, well, that was the point all along. So here you are trying to leave, and here's this person trying to stop you from leaving, so it's inconsistency galore. So I can tie in the real stuff. What happened is I grabbed my stuff, but of course I got knocked over, and I had earrings in, and one got yanked out, and I was worried it was like a slit through the earlobe, but it wasn't. It was just basically pulled out. But I was like thinking, this is sick. And I have a certain habit I've developed that over a few of these people where, like in this case, the person was yelling, screaming, and acting crazy, and I thought, oh, I'm glad I didn't stay here. And somehow I managed to maneuver this person out of their own front door. Because I was like going to the door to open it, and it was like, no, you're not leaving. It's like, yes I am. And I somehow shoved the person out their own front door and then slammed, lock. So I thought, I'm safe. Well, here's this creature, Tasmanian devil, outside, pounding with the rumbling sounds of, open that door. And then all of a sudden I heard a threat. I heard, I'm going to go mess up your car. And I thought, oh my God. And the roommate's mother was there, and I was like, call the police, he's crazy. Because I'd never seen any type of rage like this before. And it's all because I planned to leave, and it didn't want me to, and then changed its mind and wanted me to leave, so it would be his idea, which is sick. But anyway, I don't know if she called the police or somebody else did. But the police came, and by that point I opened the door again because I didn't want the car damaged, so I was responding to manipulation. But anyway, this is just a story of rape. Of course, the police came in and were like, what's going on here? We got reports of this and that, and it's like, I'm leaving. And I left, and I went home. And I think it was a long time before Hoover occurred, or attempted Hoover. I was young then, in college, and I went back. And black eyes and broken fingers later, it's a great day. It only gets worse.
You really shouldn't be quite so judgmental. It's not worth it.
Darling, if you can't accept me for who I am, then maybe it's best we don't speak anymore. No loss for me.
Hold on a team. We got he's one of our regular customers.
I play a Latino for him, and he likes it. Don't tell him I told you. I've gotten lots of requests to see me nude. So, never fail. I'll be in next month's issue of Playboy. Nude! With my special spread, which is called Read My Lips.
I want to talk to you. Look, if you ever tell anyone else that I am a lesbian, you are going to get it. I may be a lesbian on Tuesdays and Wednesdays and Thursdays, but that ain't none of your business. So keep your mouth shut, or I'll shut it for you.
I know you probably don't understand, but when you're the narcopath, you have a lot of duties to fulfill. I can't be expected just to be your one-on-one girlfriend. With there's so much else out there to be tempted to as far as business. But I made it seem like I was a simple kind of gal, didn't I? And you fell for it. Little did you know I was making love to your entire family. Well, that's your problem, because you're not perceptive enough.